So let's talk about self-compassion. And as we said earlier, self-compassion is really just treating yourself like you would a dear friend.
Yeah, and when do you need to do that? So think about it. Throughout your day, a lot of times you make a mistake or something that you perceive as a mistake. And for many of us, the first thing we usually do is we turn on ourselves inside of our minds. You know, I'm such an idiot, I'm such a this, I'm such a that. We really aren't very compassionate to ourselves usually.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Ironically, we did a retreat on self-compassion a number of years ago, and I was making photocopies of a handout and noticed that I made a typo. And I thought, oh my goodness, well, this is the perfect time to practice my skills of self-compassion.
Yeah, and what did I say to you? I said, it's okay. Anybody could have, made this mistake. And actually it was kind of funny because the people at the retreat, we shared this with them. And it was a great example because that is what anybody would have said to you, but inside your mind, that may not have been the way you responded to your misstep, let's say.
No, of course. My first reaction, a gut reaction, was to go with those core negative beliefs that we have, right? Like, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, how could I have done that? Made a mistake like that and overlooked it and actually made hundreds of copies of it. But then I thought, okay, I know how this works. I understand self-compassion, and we're going to be teaching people at this retreat about self-compassion. So I took that skill set and I put it into practice.
Yeah, and those core negative beliefs that you talked about, these things that, I'm not enough or I'm such an idiot or whatever it is, that one thing that you constantly go back to, we like to call that falling under the umbrella of what we call the mushroom topics. And these are things that grow when you keep them in the dark. So we're saying pull them out into the light.
That's right, yeah, so that you don't keep them bottled up inside
Yeah.
of you. We have to make sure we're not shoving our emotions down at any time.
Yeah, and so self-compassion has three individual components, and you'll find all of this in the writing exercise, but we're just going to go through it real quick. And the first one is mindfulness, really just being aware of what's happening, what you're saying, what you're doing.
Yeah, recognizing that you've been triggered in some way. And then the second component is something called common humanity. And what common humanity basically means is you're not alone and that everybody experiences these same things. And so when it comes to suffering or it comes to a mistake you've made, recognizing that other people make mistakes too.
Yeah, and that is so helpful. And the third component, after those first two, the third component is self-kindness, being kind to yourself instead of beating yourself up. And, I know for me, that's just been a hard one. But when we started to raise our awareness and talk about this, and I started to think about it, I was like, wow, I'm really not being kind to myself.
No, and oftentimes we're not. And sometimes it really requires us to imagine that a friend came to us with that same issue and then pretend like you're talking to them.
Yeah, and we had a good example of that just recently. Unfortunately, we both had deaths in our immediate families, your father, my brother, and we comforted each other in a way that was really, really helpful. And that's been a great exercise in my mind for how to comfort myself. Being able to think about, what was it that you did for me? You were so kind and loving and supportive, and I hope I was the same for you.
I was going to say, as you were for me.
Right.
Yes.
And so when you think about your friends and how you've comforted someone when they were suffering in a difficult time, imagine if you did that same thing, had that same attitude with your own self. Imagine how that would change the outcome of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we encourage you to take the time to work through the exercises, and also the meditation is a loving kindness meditation, and that's my favorite type of meditation. And basically what you're doing is you're cultivating compassion for yourself and for others.
Yeah, so beautiful. So good luck with all of that. As we said before, just do the very best you can. Be as honest as you can with yourself, and read through all of the written exercises, and we will see you back here soon.